Every summer, my brother and I go down to our aunt's farm. It's like any other farm. There's a wooden house in the middle of a huge field. There's cows on one of the patches and sheep on the other. For the past 5 years, we have made our way down to the farm to spend the summer there. This was the 6th year we went down to visit her. Uncle Andrew wasn't there this summer. His work had dragged him to China. I never really asked him what he does for a living, but he does travel a lot. As usual, our mom would give us a lift there. She would have a whole summer to spend with my dad. It was a highlight for them, and we really loved the farm, which just made it easier for both groups. It was around 8 p.m. when we arrived at the farm. Our Aunt Anna greeted us with a joyful smile and a huge jug of lemonade. We got our things from the car. My bag was usually smaller than my brother's, since I'm not the fashion man. I don't carry a lot of clothes with me, since I tend to wear the same shirt and trousers for at least 3 days. I did bring some random possessions, such as an iPod, a few books, and a bunch of DVDs. We made our way to the room we usually stay at while my mom was talking to our aunt. You know, girly chit-chat stories must be shared. Mom usually stayed for one night and would leave the next morning, but this year she said she didn't have the time to stay since our parents had something planned already. Setting my foot through the door, I felt a little odd. Unsure of what the feeling was, I didn't question it and made my way to the bed. I sat down on the bed, feeling the most unusual discomfort. It felt like someone has already been in this room, and not too long ago. "You alright?" my brother asked. Since I wasn't really in the jolliest of moods. "You don't look too well." "Yeah, I'm fine. Don't worry about me," I replied. I started to unpack my bag, putting my clothes in the wardrobe. By this point, my brother was out of the room already, most likely hunting for food in the fridge. I looked around the room when a sudden gust of chilly wind hit me. I rapidly turned around and looked at the window, to find a glimpse of a shadow-like image dart across the window. Without hesitation, I ran towards the window and opened it, looked left and right, but found nothing unusual, just the sun ray begging to fade in the distance. The room we stayed in is an attic room. The window is inside the roof, allowing easy access to the roof if it's ever needed. The roof isn't the easiest to walk on, but it's doable. Finding nothing of interest, I withdrew my head from the outside window. Turning my head around, I blinked and saw a note in the middle of the carpet. "What the fuck?" I thought to myself. I stood there for at least a minute, staring at the note, scared to pick it up. I know it was a little silly. A simple note could have dropped out from my brother's bag, or indeed mine, but I could not get myself to pick it up. I took a really deep breath and walked towards it, slowly but on target. Each step was harder and harder to take, as if the note itself was trying to repel me from it. I kneeled down and picked up the note, opened it up. What? There wasn't any writing on the note. It was just a circle, a plain circle with an X on it. The ends of the X stretched beyond the circle. It looked like a sign. What could this mean? What's it from? What do I do? Nothing but questions roamed around my mind. I walked over to the light switch and turned it on. As it was nearly pitch black in the room, I put the note into the front pocket of my trousers and headed for the door. As I made my way down the stairs, I saw my brother help out Anna in her bedroom, moving some furniture around. I made my way into the living room, which was lit up by a fireplace. I went on to the family computer, which wasn't the greatest piece of technology ever. Out of curiosity, I looked up information about the symbol from the note. After researching it for a while, it became clear that the sign was connected with the Slender Man. I did some research into his case, what his appearance is, his background, cases of missing kids and missing adults. I also watched a few of the Marble Hornets videos, which are entries of the Slender Man sightings. I saw many of the same symbols around the entries. I also read up a few stories of other people's sightings of the Slender Man. With my head full of information, I sat in front of the fireplace. It was incredibly relaxing, and the feeling of heat really gave me that Christmas feeling. Soon after, I found myself laying in my bed under my covers, hearing nothing but my brother's loud snoring. Must have fallen asleep, I thought to myself as I stared at the ceiling. Reaching into my pocket, I took out the note, not being able to see anything due to the darkness. I looked at the window. What exactly was it that I saw back there? With that question on my mind, I fell asleep. For the next 2 weeks, nothing really happened on this farm. It was just a usual helping out, milking cows, feeding the pigs, collecting the eggs, and the one thing I hated the most, waking up at 6 a.m. One thing I loved about this farm was that the breakfast was the best thing you'd ever taste. We had a cup of fresh milk with a plate of bacon, scrambled eggs, sausages, toast, and a few tomatoes on the side. No wonder I always gained weight over the summer. The start of the week was fine, but something strange happened on Thursday. One of the sheep went missing in the nearby woods. As we didn't count the sheep before the end of the day, we didn't make an attempt to find it. The next day, me, my brother, and Anna made our way into the woods to look for the lost sheep. Lucky was her name. Barely 10 minutes passed when we came across a dead sheep. What we saw was nothing we could ever get through. Trails of blood led us to a pile of body insides besides a carcass of a sheep. This was terrifying. Lucky's mouth wasn't torn, but looked stretched, as if someone forcefully shoved arms down her throat. The wool was still on the sheep, which indicated that it wasn't killed for money. While Anna's eyes started to tear up, I walked over to the sheep, taking slow steps to a fly-covered carcass. I looked at the tree Lucky was near. Some of the wool was caught on the tree bark. What in God's name happened here? I thought to myself as I scanned the tree. Looking down at Lucky, I could see the only blood on the poor thing was around her mouth, even though everything from the inside of her body was taken out. The sight of such a thing shocked all of us, so we left the forest. We got back to the house, and I made Anna call the police. We all stayed on the bottom floor, in the kitchen to be exact, waiting for their arrival. They arrived at the house in less than 20 minutes, which was surprising as the police here weren't the greatest. As they were interrogating my brother and Anna, I ran upstairs to acquire the little note to show them. As I made my way into the room, I got that same odd feeling I got the first time we arrived at the farm. Glancing down at the floor, my heart nearly stopped. Once again, there was a note, same place, same color, and same size. I could not believe my eyes. Why is this happening to me? I once again made my way towards the note. I picked it up, but this time something fell out of it. It was white wool. Barely aware of my actions, I opened the note to find the same symbol, an O with an X inside it. Remembering about my other note, I ran towards my bedside table. I hid the note in the second drawer. I opened the drawer. Not there. It had gone missing. Could this be the same note? But how did the wool get in here? Upon hearing my name being shouted from downstairs, I got a sudden adrenaline rush. Without paying much attention, I quickly shoved the note into the drawer and made my way downstairs. Not much else happened that day. The police spent most of the day looking at any clues that were left, but nothing was found, except for a thin piece of black cloth-like material in the sheep's teeth. The police detective confirmed that something was indeed forcefully shoved into Lucky's mouth, and that all the inner organs had been removed using the mouth. One in a lifetime case, one of them called it. I was too afraid to show them the note, in case I got blamed for anything to do with Lucky's death, as the note had Lucky's wool in it. I could not sleep that night. Images of the empty carcass with bodily organs in a pile right beside it made each of my sleeping attempts a miserable disaster. That note, what could it mean? I looked over to my brother. He was asleep. I do wonder how he does it. Nothing can stop him from being able to fall asleep, and nothing can wake him up either. I got out of bed, since there was no point of staying in it. The night was silent and dark, just like the towns at night during World War II. Not a single beam of artificial light could be seen, only the moon providing any kind of possible vision. I walked over to the window and looked at the field, my eyes still adjusting to the dim night light. That's when I saw him, the thing I've been watching, reading about, a tall, thin man in a suit-like outfit standing there, in the middle of the field, staring at me from the way his head was facing. I couldn't actually make anything out from his face. It's like it wasn't there at all. I've always been a bit of a skeptic, ever since I was a kid. Scary stories don't faze me, horror games never frighten me, and whenever I hear something weird at night, I instantly assume it's something normal, an animal or just the house settling. Despite this, something very unsettling happened to me the other day, and I'm really not sure what to make of it. I think it's the first time in years I've been genuinely frightened. I live in a forested area in the US. Me and my girlfriend live in a large cabin, and although there are roads nearby, our nearest neighbors are at least a kilometer away. We also have 2 cats, one of which sleeps in the bedroom with us, whilst the other one often goes out at night and does whatever cats do when they're out of sight. Anyway, I like to stay up late at night and sleep late into the morning, whereas my girlfriend's an early bird. It was about 1 in the morning, and I was watching crappy TV in the living room while my girlfriend slept in the bedroom. I was beginning to grow tired when I heard something outside, near the cat flap. For clarity, our cat flap uses an electronic chip so only our cats can use it. I assumed it was just one of the cats coming into or leaving the house, and I ignored it. Then I heard it again. It sounded like something thudding against the flat. It happened several times at random intervals, until I lost my patience and decided to just go and open the door. Clearly the cat was having trouble getting in. I never thought about it at the time, but this was weird because we fed our cats well, and they are very lean rather than chubby. I passed the bedroom and peered in as I walked past to see if my girlfriend heard the noises. She was fast asleep, but the cat that sleeps with us was staring at the window. I called her name. Nothing. She kept staring. I shrugged it off and kept heading towards the kitchen. The back doors are through there. Anyway, so I reached the back door and saw a dark shape through the translucent flap. I sighed, expecting the cat to be out there, and opened the door. It took me a moment to open the door, and I saw the cat tense up as I opened the door. The door opened fully. I froze. It wasn't my cat. Whatever it was had started moving before I opened up, and I only caught a glimpse of a distorted figure, kind of like a tailless dog, bolting. I freaked out and slammed the door shut. What the hell was it? I wasn't sure. My natural skepticism kicked in, and I assumed it was just my other cat, and I had merely startled it. Perhaps the darkness had made it appear larger. Nevertheless, I was creeped out and decided to go to sleep. As I slipped into bed, I realized something horrifying. The second cat was asleep on the rug. It took a while to fall asleep that night. Everything seemed normal until a few hours later. I awoke to a strange feeling of dread. Something wasn't right. My girlfriend was fast asleep. I held my breath and heard something creaking by the door. It sounded too loud to be one of the cats. It was as if a person was walking about. I reached towards my bedside cabinet and flicked on the lamp. The room was illuminated, and I saw something standing just outside the open door, staring at me. The same twisted figure I had spotted outside earlier. It wasn't very tall, maybe a little over 5 feet, but it's his face that scared me the most. I only caught a glimpse of it, but what I saw will stay with me forever. It looked like a dog, but with an elongated face and almost human-like eyes. You know that weird distorted snarl hounds pull up when they're pissed off? It had that expression. I instantly started yelling profanities as I scrambled backwards, trying to straighten up. The creature turned and sprinted down the hall. I heard it dash outside and go past the window behind us, just above the headboard. I managed to look out as my girlfriend started to panic as she woke up fully. We both caught a glimpse of whatever the hell this thing was as it dashed off into the woods near our home. Grabbing my trusty shotgun from beneath the bed, as well as a couple of rounds from the ammunition box that sits next to it, I ran out of the room in my underwear and rounded into the kitchen. The door was open. I'd forgotten to lock it when I saw the thing originally. I haven't seen it since, and we still live in our cabin, but I've bought sturdier locks for all of the main doors and windows in the house, and I always check the exit points at night. I also go to bed a bit earlier than I used to, so I'm asleep when the freaks of the night start to wake up. I've read a bunch of forums, and the only thing I can compare it to, based on what I saw, is a skinwalker. I think it's time I told people about the time my friends and I went looking for the Jersey Devil. For those of you that haven't heard or read about the Jersey Devil, I highly suggest you read about it. I will also suggest to leave your interest at that. Do not go looking for this thing under any circumstances. Please, I cannot stress it enough. I hope my story will show you why. My father's side of the family is from New Jersey. Because of this, I have spent quite a bit of time down there vacationing. The Pine Barrens was a good traveling distance away from where I generally went, so I hardly knew anything about it. All I really knew was that the thing is pretty damn dense. Since my family was from New Jersey, naturally one of their favorite hockey teams was the New Jersey Devils. Curious as to why they were called the Devils, I had to do some research. After some basic searching, I learned a good deal of information about the legend of the Jersey Devil. I was hooked. When I say hooked, I don't mean it controlled my life. I just loved reading and rereading about this thing. I loved watching any special on it. The unexplainable and supernatural was always enticing to me, and I generally tried to share my love for them with my friends. While most of them were intrigued with what I had to say, only two of them seemed as interested as I was: Tim and Peter. Tim, Peter, and I had been friends since middle school. The three of us were pretty average middle-class white kids that just wanted to get by under the radar. Since these two were as interested in the supernatural as myself, we all tended to stay together more so than the rest of our friends. Whenever the three of us would have sleepovers, we would always end up talking about visiting haunted places, cemeteries, the Lizzie Borden house, Vlad the Impaler's castle, and more importantly, the Pine Barrens to look for the Jersey Devil. There was something about the devil that always interested us. That's why we decided during the summer after we graduated high school, we were going to drive down to New Jersey for 2 weeks and look for the devil in the woods. Since we made this a goal for the summer in the distant future, which is now last year, we spent plenty of time learning about camping and wilderness survival. We were no Boy Scouts, but we figured we could hold our own. Tim's father is actually a pretty good hunter, so he taught us a good deal and even took us out camping a handful of times to learn the basics of hunting. We didn't intend to spend the entire 2 weeks in the woods, only a few days. The majority of the time in New Jersey would be spent with my family after the fact. The summer that seemed so distant in the future finally came. We decided to head out in late June. After piling all of our shit in Peter's car, we set our course to the Pine Barrens. We had read up on as much as we could. We knew there were still people living out there, the Pineys, and there was plenty of wildlife that we would have to be cautious of. Peter's dad lent us 2 of his old hunting rifles for protection in case we needed them. At this point, I just want to skip ahead to when we first got settled in the woods. Driving to the Pine Barrens and parking near there is nothing exciting. We set up camp in a relatively open clearing that had 2 fallen logs that we could sit on. It seemed like it had been used as a campsite previously, which we just figured was convenient for us. The first day was a pretty standard time in the forest. No sign of dangerous wildlife, no sign of Pineys, no sign of the devil. After having a couple of beers each, we decided to head to bed so we could have a full day of exploring. We had 2 tents, a bigger one that could probably fit the 3 of us but was better suited for 2, and a smaller one meant for 1 person. I opted to stay in the single one. Peter handed me one of the rifles and said, "In case you need it, man, we'll be right near you too." I nodded at him and retreated into my tent. I fell asleep pretty fast because of the drive and the beers we had, but my sleep didn't last too long. You know what they say about beer, you don't really buy the stuff, you only rent it. I don't know how many of you have been camping in the woods, but the nights can get dark, and I had been used to the darkness after going on those hunting and camping trips. But when I stepped out of the tent, I was completely absorbed in the absence of light. It must have been only an hour or two since I went to bed, and yet the entire atmosphere of the clearing felt significantly heavier. I reached out my hand to feel ahead of me as to avoid walking into anything. When my arm extended, it was as if someone drained the heat out of it and weighed it down. It was simultaneously cold and humid ahead of me, but when I would walk in that direction, I didn't notice any temperature changes. It was just my arm that kept feeling like something was trying to pull it down. After getting a few steps away, I began to piss. The relief from that overrode any feeling of uneasiness I had prior to that. It was then that I heard it. Laughter. It was laughter coming from a good distance ahead of me, not behind me where the tents were. Although I couldn't see them, the trees felt like they grew hundreds of feet above me. I stopped hearing myself breathe. I could feel my pulse without even checking for it. My body was numb. Any attempt to move at all was hindered by something inside me telling me to stop moving. The laughter sounded human, so I figured it was some pineys walking around in the woods. Feeling came back into my body in the form of a tingle in my nose. I had to sneeze. The instant I realized that, it came out. Even if the sneeze wasn't actually loud, it was single-handedly the loudest noise I had ever heard in my entire life. I never ran faster in my entire life. I dove into the tent, zipped it up, and kept the rifle nearby. I tried to listen to hear if anyone was headed our way, but nothing could be heard. I was up for a while afterwards, but soon enough I fell back asleep, still holding on to the rifle. The next morning, Tim and Peter woke me up. "Hey man, how'd you sleep?" Tim asked me while he was chewing on a granola bar. "Alright," I replied. I decided not to tell them about the night. Why? I don't know. I didn't want to ruin anyone's fun, and I figured I was just hearing things. I would tell them after we were out of the woods. "So dude, Tim and I thought after breakfast we could head out and start looking around the area that way," Peter said while pointing in the opposite direction from the laughs I heard last night. "What do you think?" I looked over in the direction and felt uneasy again. My eyes turned back to Peter. I shook my head and said, "I don't know, man. I think I'm gonna rest up a bit more. I didn't sleep too well last night. You guys can go on ahead, though." "Oh, okay. You sure, man?" "Yeah," I replied. Shortly after that, they tried to get me to go. After they failed enough times, they decided to head out without me. I went back into the tent to lay down for a little while more. After what seemed to be an hour or so, I heard the laughter again. I felt my spine contort itself in all sorts of directions. The laughter was louder this time. I reached for the rifle and kept it on my lap. The laughter grew even louder. I tried to control my breathing to make myself less noticeable, but I realized that that would do me no good. I closed my eyes and hoped for the best. The laughter was closer, except it started to turn into something different. In the middle of the laugh, it turned into a rapid series of clicking, almost like the sound the predator makes. My grip on the rifle was so tight to the point that my hands felt as if they were glued to it. I opened my eyes and looked to the right to see a shadow on the tent. Something was standing outside of it. The clicking noise stopped. Instead, a distorted hissing noise came out. At the tail end of the sound came a distant, "Eric, come out of the tent." With that, a claw came ripping through the side of the tent where the shadow was. I aimed my rifle and fired until I had no more rounds left in it. Feeling an incredible amount of adrenaline, I jumped out of the tent and started to load the rifle. There was an eerie feeling of silence in the clearing. No sign of whatever the fuck that was. I knew I had to check around the tent to see if there was any blood. My body wouldn't let me. Whatever or whoever that was knew my name. The true gravity of the situation didn't hit me yet. I tried to take a step towards the direction of the laughter while aiming my rifle. As soon as I did, I saw it. It had the head of a goat with pointed, jagged horns. Its eyes were pure black. Its wings seemed shredded but expanded well beyond its body. Its body was a deep red. It had cloven feet but arms that seemed almost human. It was staring at me, waiting for me to make a move. After we had stood there without making any moves, it cocked its head in an almost 90-degree angle. He began to laugh again, and let me tell you, hearing a human laugh come from that thing was more terrifying than any sound it could have produced. I turned in the direction that my friends headed and ran for it. The thing must have started chasing me because the laughter was following me with every footstep. I was crying. My legs were stomping on the dead ground. My right arm was clenching the rifle. I wasn't even watching where I was headed. I just kept running. The laughter stopped for a moment and turned into the most ear-piercing, death-defying scream I had ever heard. It sounded like a fisher cat and a banshee mixed together. I had to bring my hands to my ears, which was easily the dumbest thing I could have done at that point. I dropped the fucking rifle. While blocking my ears, I kept running. I felt like I was running on a path, although I knew I was just running in the dense part of the woods. Ahead of me, I saw another clearing that had 2 trees in front of it that resembled a gate. My legs were starting to give out, so I knew I had to hide somewhere. Right before I reached the clearing, the ground below me collapsed. I let out a scream and fell into the cold dirt below. I felt and heard my wrist snap as I hit the bottom of the hole. There was a ringing in my ear as I looked up to the top of the hole. It was standing at the top, looking down at me. It was clearly smiling at this point. It brought one of its fingers to its mouth and said, "Shh, go to sleep, Eric." That was the last thing I saw. I woke up to my friends yelling down to me, "Holy shit, dude. Eric, can you hear us? Eric, wake the fuck up, man." I looked up at them and Tim let out a sigh of relief. Guys, I tried to talk, but the energy was out of my body. I was fortunate that Peter had brought rope with him. I guess Tim tied a knot around a stump and Peter climbed down to grab me. It was a bit hazy from my perspective, but I remember being hoisted up somehow and carried back to camp. I remember hearing Tim say, "Holy shit, dude, you can see the bone is broken. He needs to go to a hospital, man." Peter yelled back, I know, fuck, what the fuck?" The next thing I remember is being in a hospital bed. I guess we had managed to get out okay. My arm had taken some serious damage in the fall, even if it hadn't been too huge of a drop. I fell into some sick trap that the Pineys made. My family had driven to the hospital to see me. Tim's, Peter's, and my parents were all on their way as well. My time in the hospital wasn't lengthy by any means, nor was our stay in New Jersey. We headed home 2 days after I was discharged. The rest of the year was pretty normal. I didn't tell anyone about what I saw, not even Tim or Peter. Whenever they would ask about what happened and where the rifle went, I would make some story up about being chased by an animal. I never got the impression that they believed me. I started college in my hometown, but I became a little more reserved. That time in the Pine Barrens had some effect on me that lingered. During the semester, I kind of drifted away from Tim and Peter. I kind of drifted away from everything, really. During winter break, we hung out more like we used to, except we didn't talk about the supernatural as much anymore. I really had no desire to talk about it. We would just play video games, drink beer, and watch movies. Then the summer of 2015 came. I barely had a 2.0 grade point average at school. I had no job. I had nothing really going for me. I would spend most of my time in bed watching Netflix. By the spring of 2016, I realized that I was wasting my time. I couldn't let whatever I saw in the woods change me completely. I gradually started working harder at school and even harder at finding a decent part-time job. Tim and Peter were still my friends, but we all had different things to do. I graduated college in 2019. I raised my GPA up to a solid 3.7. I began to think about going to grad school. No matter how grueling the work would be, my parents were proud of me. I would get together with Tim and Peter every so often to talk about life over a couple of beers. I met Tracy in 2020. We fell in love pretty hard and pretty fast. We were married in 2022. We had our first kid, Max, in 2026. I was taking classes for my master's degree while working as a manager at a department store. Tracy passed away in 2027 due to a car accident. I stopped taking classes for my master's so I could focus on raising Max. My parents both passed away in 2028. Cancer killed them both. Tim passed away in 2030. He drank himself to death. Peter passed away in 2031, hanged himself in his kitchen. Max was my one and only focus in my life. He was used to not having his mother around because he didn't even know her. I never got used to it. Max was killed in a drunk driving accident in 2045. He was the passenger and his friend Henry was well above the legal limit to be driving. They crashed into a street light head-on. Henry survived the crash. I lived the rest of my life alone. After Max died, I didn't even find myself crying. My body had grown too numb from it. The pain of everything beforehand shattered my soul. The last year I remember was 2084. I was 88 at that point in my 5th year being completely bedridden. I think it was a Tuesday. I can't remember. I just remember seeing the television turn off. I looked around the room to see why it turned off, and that's when I saw it. It was there, in my bedroom, the thing from the Pine Barrens. It cocked its head to the side again and laughed in the same way it did 70 years before. The feeling of terror came back to my body. I had life again, but that life was a stinging sensation that my dying body had not felt in years. It lasted for only a moment. The devil lunged at me, digging his claws into my chest. I woke back up in the hole that I fell into in the woods. My wrist was broken. My friends were yelling down at me again. They hoisted me up with the rope. They brought me to the hospital. I started drifting away from Tim and Peter when I got into college. I still didn't tell anyone about the devil, and I definitely didn't tell them about what I had just experienced. I didn't know what I could tell them. After all, was it a dream? It felt so vivid. Though whenever people would talk, I knew what they were going to say. I experienced deja vu every day. I still experience deja vu every day. If I ever try to tell anyone in person, something prevents me from doing so. No matter how hard I try to do the opposite of what I did before, it still happens anyway. Even if I lived for 70 years beyond my encounter, any little thing I do now is still fresh in my memory from when I lived in all those years ago. I had forgotten about these minor things in my old age, but with each day, the memories are returning. Everything is happening again. Everything. And now, as I'm sitting here in 2015, I can't help but think that everything is going to repeat itself. I will eat the same meals again. I will laugh at the same jokes again. I will experience the heartbreak again. I will watch as my loved ones die one after the other. What's even more terrifying to me is the thought that I will see that thing, the devil, again at the end of my life. But this time when I see it, will I die or will I go back to that hole in the woods, forced to experience this all again? Hey guys, thank you all for watching, and if you like this video, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join the Nightmare Army. I'm always looking for new soldiers in my Nightmare Nation. Hey guys, I hope everybody had a great weekend, and I'm really sorry this video got pushed to today instead of yesterday. I'm really sorry about that. I like to keep my Friday traditions, but just my God, yesterday, it just felt like either God or the forces of nature just did not want me to edit this video yesterday. I'm not even kidding. It was just a clusterfuck of craziness. Anyways, I hate making excuses, but just yesterday, oh my God, every time I went to sit down and actually edit this video, it's like, Joey, I'm like, oh. But anyways, guys. So guys, I have a question I want to ask you guys. Do you guys like Howard Stern? And if you do, I have a friend Tom who runs a YouTube channel called The Tom Johnson Show. He does a podcast pretty much every Thursday, and him and his friends talk about the most wackiest crap you could possibly think of. They are absolutely crazy. And if you like that stuff, please go check out their channel and see if you like them. They're a really good group of people, and they talk about the most craziest shit, the craziest topics, and the stuff that they do on that channel is pretty sick. So if you can bear that, then if you like that stuff, then go check out their channel. I'll leave a link right in the description and right here. And for next Friday's video, I was actually thinking about doing a creepypasta video, finally. I know a lot of you have been, wanting me to do that. However, what are some creepypasta stories you guys want me to do? Leave them down in the comments below. And as always, thank you all for watching, and just remember, the best ideas always come out of nightmares.